We are ready to go live. Yes, we are live.
Okay. Good morning, all. I, Sonali Sharma, member of AWS User Group Indore, welcome you all in today's session. I felt immense pleasure to introduce Sri Devi Murugayan ma'am. She has 17 plus years of IT experience and is a passionate developer and problem solver. She is a certified AWS and Spark professional, currently working at Presidio, an AWS consulting partner focusing on providing big data and analytics solution for customers. Sridevi ma'am is an active organizer of the AWS user group in Chennai and helps host and deliver AWS community days, meetups, and technical sessions to the developer community. She is a regular speaker in community events focusing on analytics solutions using AWS analytics services. She strongly believes in diversity and inclusion for a successful society and loves encouraging and enabling women technologists. She was selected as one of the AWS reInvent Community Leader Diversity Grant recipients in 2019. She is the first data hero of India. So, without taking much time, I feel honored to invite ma'am for start the session. Welcome, ma'am.
Oh, that was a great introduction. Thank you so much, Sonali. It's good to hear so many things about myself. But yeah, so thank you so much. So all credits to the community and AWS for helping us with all of these sessions and enabling us deliver so many sessions across different regions of India. Okay, so I think we are already delayed a bit. We had some technical glitches, but let's get started and let me share my screen. Okay. Hope my screen is visible. I think my introduction was already done. So today we are going to have an introduction to S3 and a bit of Athena and how Athena can help querying your S3 files for initial analysis and how can it help in general, in any AWS solution is what we are going to look at for today. So what is Amazon S3? So S3 actually stands for Simple Storage Services. So there are three S's, so that's why it is called S3. So it is an object storage built to store and retrieve any amount of data. So object S3 doesn't have a limit on the volume of data, the number of objects you can store. So you can store any volume of data, any number of objects. So it gives infinite scalability. And the size of each object can be a maximum of 5 TB. However, as I said, there is no limit on the total number of objects you can have in a bucket. And the largest object that can be uploaded in a single command. So when you just upload a document, the maximum size of the file could be 5 GB. But if it exceeds that, you can go with multi-part upload. So S3 is a very highly scalable, durable, available. So you have all the factors of an architecture. If you want to have a highly scalable solution, highly durable solution for storing your objects, S3 is the first option to go with an AWS architecture. So S3 will be used across all services for any of your backups, for storing your log data. So anything that is stored within the AWS services will use S3 as their storage solution. And what are some of the facts about S3? So S3, you can access it through web. So you can access it through an endpoint using access point through API or HTTPS. And it is highly durable. So what is durable? Durable is the long-term storage. So you will have the same storage for a long time. So the durability is 11 nines of durability. So you'll be hearing this everywhere. So S3 has 11 nines of durability. and it is limitlessly scalable. So you can have any number of objects, any volume of data, as I told earlier. So it is limitlessly scalable, and you have different tiers, different tiers of data, different tiers of storage to use it according to your business needs. So I'll be talking about this tiers slightly in the next couple of slides. So we'll deep dive into it because that is going to be very critical for designing your storage strategy. And then you can also configure lifecycle rules on the object. So if you have an object and you can transition amongst these tiers, so from one tier to another tier, or you can look at deleting it after a certain number of days. So you'll be able to configure those lifecycle rules on S3. And then you can also use S3 for hosting your static website. So I'll show a quick demo of that towards the end of it. So if you have a static website, S3 can be used for hosting it. Okay? Instead of hosting your own personal web server or hosting some other web server on a EC2 instance, you can go and host it directly on an S3 bucket. And then it is highly secure, and there are a lot of compliance settings that you can do on S3. So from a security perspective itself, you have IAM, bucket policies, access control list. So there are multiple facets to the security itself. So it's very highly secure, highly scalable, highly durable system for your object storage needs. And how is data organized in S3? So if you look at S3 from a console perspective, you look at it as a series of folders, right? So you see a folder one, and inside that you can see multiple folders, and you'll see data inside that. But internally, it is actually simple key-based object store. So every object in S3 is stored as an object with a key. So you'll be able to access the object using the key. The key can be anything. It can be a structure, it can be a folder structure. So however you want to see, you can provide your key. Ideally, generally, right, when you see your object, it is organized as a folder structure for easy retrieval and easy visualization. Okay, but internally, the objects are not stored as folders and the structures. It is rather a key. So every object will just have a key, and based on the key, we'll be able to retrieve the objects. Okay, as I told, right, there are different object storage classes within S3. So we listed all the 6 types here. So the storage patterns are based on your access frequency. If you want to access your data very frequently, then you go for S3 standard. And for any archival data where you'll never access and it is stored just for your audit purpose, right? For your audit, there are a lot of audit requirements where they want to have the data and they don't want to delete it. So for those audit purpose, if you want to have your data with no accessibility, rather you will go with S3 Glacier and S3 Glacier Deep Archive. So S3 standard frequent access, S3 standard is used for any frequent, and it is a standard storage that normally any business use case will use. So and S3 intelligent tiering is between S3 standard and S3 standard infrequent access. Okay, so what does it do? It just monitors your object in the bucket, and it categorizes the object by itself between S3 standard and S3 standard infrequent access. So what are the difference between these different tiers? It is just the costing aspect. Okay, if you see S3 standard comes with a cost of $0.02 per GB. But if you see the Glacier Deep Archive, the rate is 0.00099 per GB, right? So if you want to optimize your cost based on your access pattern, you have to tier these files. Okay, if you just keep it in standard, then the cost of storage would be higher. So you'll be paying 2 cents per GB, right? But if you are into infrequent access, then you'll be paying 1 cent per GB. So if it is a really huge data set, then it is almost double the cost, right? So compared to your standard IA will be half of it. So that is where you want to understand the tiers, and you want to actually put your data in the proper tier so that you have a reduced cost. Okay, so S3 standard is for any standard access. So if you have a job running every day, pulling the data, reading, writing, then go for S3 standard. And S3 standard infrequent is for data that is not very frequently accessed. So if you are going to access the data once in a month or once in 6 months or once in a year, but you want immediate data to be available to you, then go for standard infrequent access. Okay, so S3 one zone IA is S3 one zone infrequent access, where the data will be stored only in one availability zone rather than 3 availability zone. So there, the availability will be slightly lesser compared to S3 standard IA. Okay, so OneZone IA is primarily used when you can recreate the data. So even if you lose the data, if you have the capability to recreate the data, then you can go for S3 OneZone IA, because the data is not redundantly stored; it is just stored in one zone, one availability zone. Okay, and then Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive are for archival strategies, archival methodologies, and the data retrieval is going to take a little longer. It could be in minutes and hours. Rather, the other four tiers will have a seconds or milliseconds retrieval time. Okay, so that is the difference. So when you design your data storage in S3, just understand how you want to manage the storage of the object. So it can start with standard, but after 30 days you can move it to infrequent access, and maybe after 1 year you can move it to S3 Glacier, and maybe after 5 years move it to Deep Glacier. S3 Glacier Deep Archive. So you can just define your life cycle rules and manage your data so that your storage cost is optimized. So you don't have to spend a lot of cost in your storage, especially when you are dealing with a system which has petabytes of data stored in S3. A quick comparison of storage tiers here. Okay, so these are the 6 storage tiers that we are talking about. So from a durability perspective, if you see, everything is 11.9. So what is durable? So your data is available long term. So there is no loss to the data. So it will be available. So everything is 11.9. So durability is not impacted. So what about the availability? So availability is 99.99 for S3 standard, Glacier, and Deep Archive, but there will be reduced availability for OneZone IA. The reason being, the data is not replicated across multiple availability zones. It is just for in one level AZ, right? So the availability will be slightly less, but others are 99.9%. Okay, and from availability zone perspective, except the OneZone IA, you'll have the data in multiple availability zones. And if you see the retrieval fee, there is no retrieval fee for S3 standard and intelligent tiering, but beyond that, you will have a retrieval fee because the storage cost is very low. Your retrieval cost, there will be a minimal retrieval cost to retrieve the data, and Glacier and Deep Archive will have a significant cost when you go for retrieval. And what is the latency? So how long does it take to get the data back? So no, other than Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, everything else will be in milliseconds. But Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive will take some minutes to hours. So you will have to wait for a minimum of 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 1 hour, 4 hours. So based on the type of storage that you have selected, you will have to wait for some time to get your data back from Glacier storage types. Okay, so what are the features of S3? So far you're talking about what is S3 and how do we store S3? What are the replication types, tiers, right? So what are the features? So I'll explain all of these when I show the demo. I just go through these features, but I just wanted to give a glimpse of what are the features that is available, right? So when you want to organize your S3 data into your buckets, you can use tags. So you can have tagging so that you can query based on your tags, and you can organize the data accordingly. And your prefixes are the structures, are the keys. Okay, so you can have some folder structure. So that is called prefix. And you can enable versioning on your data. So if you want to have multiple versioning enabled on your data, so you just upload data today and you want to rewrite on top of it tomorrow. If you enable versioning, you'll be able to get yesterday's version as well as today's version if required. You can go back to the previous version. So you can enable version. So these are the features available for organizing your data within your S3 bucket. And how do you monitor or how do you action on S3 events? So you have CloudWatch for your logs, for your monitoring, and CloudTrail for your auditing, as any other service. All services in AWS will use this, right? So CloudWatch for your logs and CloudTrail for your auditing. And then there is S3 event notification. So you can configure event notification for different actions in S3 bucket. So if you are actually adding an object, put object, get object, delete object, for every action, you will be able to have a notification event created, which will send message either to SQS, Lambda, SNS, so that you can action based on it. So for example, if you want to have an action based on every object, right, put in a bucket, you can just create a notification and say for every object just trigger a notification to Lambda, and Lambda will do some processing and it will store it again to other databases or S3. So typical example would be, if I upload a picture and if you want to create a thumbnail out of it, right, so you can just have a trigger which will, as soon as you put a picture, you can trigger in Lambda. Lambda will create a thumbnail and it will store in the other folder in S3 itself. So similar triggers and even notifications can be created with S3 object action. So if you want to delete something, when something is deleted and if you want to trigger some other operations, you'll be able to do that as well. So from a replication and tiering perspective, I think I was talking about this lifecycle management earlier. So if you want to move data from one tier to another tier, you can just go configure your lifecycle policies. And S3 storage class analysis is a feature that can be used for analyzing your current storage classes, right? So right now we are having so many objects. We have some 1 million objects, and you just want to understand how the storage classes and the recommendations, right? So you can use that for analyzing your current storage class, and then you can have your intelligent tiering enabled so that you can move your data based on your usage pattern. And you can also do cross-region replication. For example, if you have a data in a region, you are in US East 1, and if you want to replicate it to US West 2, or you want to replicate it to Mumbai region, you'll be able to set up cross-region replication where data in one region is continuously copied into the other region for easier access or for reducing the latency between regions. Okay, from a security perspective, AWS has IAM-based security, which is, so security itself comes in two flavors. So you'll be able to do user-based security access and a resource-based security access, right? So IAM is primarily focusing on user-based security access. So you can have your policies for users and define it, and access control list and bucket policies can be at resource level. So you have to configure your S3 bucket to provide minimal access based on the business needs, and just ensure we don't open it to the public always. Okay. And you can also encrypt it using server-side and client-side encryption. So you can use KMS, or you can use SSE3, you can use custom certificates. So it provides option for us to encrypt the data at rest as well as in transit. And then you can block public access at account level. So there is a setting that you can block public access so that your data is secure. Amazon Macie is another service which is used to discover your PII information in S3. So that is another service which can just have a look at the S3 data, and it can identify any sensitive data or PII information. And it is generally used for understanding your data sensitivity. So the key thing here is, right, you can protect your S3 bucket using IAM policies and or access control list and bucket policies. So we have to just see what combination works best for your business case. Okay, as I said earlier, right, so when the object size goes beyond 5 GB, you can't do a single put. You have to do a multi-part upload. Okay, so this is just a picture to depict how multi-part upload works. So generally the recommendation is to use multi-part uploads when the object size goes beyond 100 MB, so that it can parallelly process your object and it can quickly upload your data to S3. So this is how it works. The original object is split into multi-parts and they are uploaded in parallel, and final object is the object is finally finalized in your S3 itself. So S3 transfer acceleration is another property, another feature that you can enable in your console. So what this does is, right, instead of uploading your data to the bucket directly, it will put your data into your the nearest edge location. So it's more of a cloud-friendly location or edge location where it will be faster than you uploading to a S3 bucket which is in other region, right? So if you are, for now, if you are in Indore and if you just want to upload your data to a bucket which is in US East 1, Virginia, then what it will do is, right, you can put the data in your nearest edge location, which could be Mumbai. So from there, it will be internally copied through S3 bucket, copied through the internal network of AWS itself than the public internet. So, and it will be faster, and you will have a better response time compared to you loading the data directly into US East 1 region. So when you enable S3 transfer acceleration, what it does is it will just look for your local, the nearest edge location, and it will fast track your S3 transfers. Okay, so this is pretty much on the S3. So maybe I'll quickly walk you through the S3 and then we can come back to Athena. Okay, I'll just start the demo first and then I'll come back because just like that, moving on to Athena, I think it's better we finish off S3 demo and come back to it. Okay. Okay. So this is what you'll see when you just click on your S3 on your console. So you can just go ahead and create your bucket. So S3 is actually, when you name your S3, it should be globally unique name. Okay, it is not region specific, it is not user specific, it is not account specific. It should be globally unique. So the name cannot be used by anybody anywhere in the world. Okay, so just get some name which is globally unique. And then you can specify, you have to specify a region where you want to host your bucket. Though AWS is not a region specific service, it is global service, you have to specify a region where the bucket would be created. And then you can provide your access, so we'll block all access. And if you want to enable bucket versioning, you can go ahead and enable your bucket versioning here. So this will enable versioning on all your objects. And then you can add tag. And if you want to have encryption, so AWS supports SSE S3, SSE KMS, so you can just enable this. So SSE S3 is more of encryption by S3 itself. So the key is owned by Amazon S3, so it will encrypt the data and decrypt the data on S3 side. But if you want to have a key management service based KMS based encryption, you can have to provide your own key here. Okay. So right now I'm disabling it, and see, this object lock is going to lock your object from multiple writes. So if you want to have your object lock, you can enable this. Okay, so you'll not have multiple writes or deletions on your objects once written. So this is how you create your bucket. So once you create your bucket, I'll just move on to the bucket what I've created here already. So here you'll be able to create any number of folders you want for your usage. So create the folder based on your user needs, business needs, and then I'll click on the properties. So here you can go ahead and enable your bucket versioning if required. If you have disabled it earlier and if you want to enable it, you can go and enable the bucket versioning here. And again, the same encryption. If you want to have your encryption enabled, you can go ahead and do that. And all of these are your security things. And as I said, event notification, you can create an event notification. And here you can say for what prefix or what objects. It could be a folder within S3, right? If you just go and say only for this folder and only for this type of objects, I want to have this rule, okay? And what are the actions? So if you want to enable something, right? So for example, if anything happens to this bucket or to this folder, I want to send a notification, or I want to trigger a Lambda function, or I want to send a SMS notification, or I want to send this message to SQS. So you can just select any of these options so that whenever these actions happen, these events happen, you will have a notification accordingly. Okay, so this is actually widely used in many of the use cases, the event notification. So this could be use case even for your opportunities wherever you are working on. Okay, so you can create an event based on your object conditions. So if there is a put, post, copy, or upload, then you can have a trigger, or there are a lot of things you can do here. Okay, so this is one important feature that is widely used. And static website hosting, I'll just show the demo towards the end actually. And then coming to the permissions, so by default your public access is blocked, and then you can have your bucket specific policy here. So if you want to have resource specific policy, you can add your bucket policy, you can have your access control list here. And this is for cost. If you want to have a cross region control, you can have your cost configuration here. And then metrics. So this is where you'll be able to do the storage class analysis. So if you want to see how how your object is stored and what are the storage classes it's using, then you can go with this option. So just create a configuration and you'll be able to do some storage class analysis here. And on the management, you have the lifecycle rules, and this is where I said, right, you'll be able to transition the object from one tier to other tier. Okay, so here if you see, right, transition the current version between different options. So for now, right now you are using standard type, and if you want to move to standard infrequent access after 30 days, you can just go and configure it here. Okay, so what this will do is, right, any files in this folder will be moved from standard tier to standard infrequent access tier after 30 days. And then maybe add another transition where you'll say from standard infrequent access move to Glacier after 1 year. Okay, after 365 days. So like this, if you just continue adding based on your business needs, you'll be able to have a cost-effective solution for your S3. So lifecycle rules is another very critical thing that you have to configure when you are going to store huge volume of data in your S3 buckets. Okay. And then if you want to do replication across regions, then you can create your replication rules. And this access point is, instead of, this is actually going to give you an access point. Rather than accessing your buckets directly, you'll be able to use the access point and access the same bucket. Okay. So these are the things that you'll be able to do on an S3 bucket. For the demo today, I'm just using demo August 6. So I'll upload a file here. So you can add files. So maybe I'll just upload one CSV file and upload. So your file is now uploaded. So now what you can see from this file is, so you'll be able to see the URL of that file itself is the URI. And then this is the key. As I said, key is your full path. It is not just the file name. So rather it is the path after the bucket. So bucket name is AWS VIT demo. So whatever is there after this will become your key. So you'll be able to access this file using this key only. Okay, there is no folder structure. You need not iterate through your folders to get your file. Rather, you just give your key and get the files. Okay, and then you'll be able to do some management configuration if you want to here. And in case if you want to see what is there in this data, right, in this specific file, what you can do is you can just go to object action and there's a query with S3 select. So use S3 select to see what is there in your data, quick glimpse of the data. So this is CSV format. So I'm just going to see it in CSV itself. Okay, so we just run the query. We'll be able to see the data here itself. Okay. So this is more for a quick look at the structure of the data. In case if you don't know what S3 files are and how the structure of the file, the schema of the file, and if you just want to know how it is, you can just run S3 select quickly and see how the data is organized, the format of the data on well here itself. Okay. So one more thing that you can do is, right, you can use S3, you can upload objects through console, and you can also upload objects through your CLIs or your SDKs, right? So you'll be able to upload an object using these commands, right? CP, AWS S3 CP. I hope everybody knows AWS CLI. So you will be able to upload your AWS S3 help. So you have a lot of options where you'll be able to create bucket. Whatever you do on your console, you'll be able to do it through your CLIs as well. Okay, so you'll be able to create bucket, delete bucket, upload object, remove object, and get your metadata. So everything can be is doable via your CLI as well. Okay, so I'm just deleting this. So this is how you upload your object, and this is how you configure a S3 bucket for your usage. And if you want to enable your static website hosting, okay, so this is the website I've enabled for a static website. So what I've done is I've added an index HTML and I've added an error.html. So it's a very simple index HTML. And in the properties, we just have to go and enable your static website hosting. Okay, so what you have to do is edit and enable. And what that will give you is you have to provide your index.html and error.html when you enable it. And that will give you a link. Okay, so this will be the URL for accessing your website. Okay, so it's a very simple exercise. If you want to host something which is static, you can have your index.html and design your index.html however you want to deliver it. And you can add your static fields as well inside this S3 bucket itself, and it will be rendering your index.html. Okay. All right. So I'll now move on to the Athena side of things. So what is Athena? So why are we talking about Athena? Why did I choose to talk about Athena when I wanted to talk about S3? Athena is more for querying your S3 data interactively. Okay, right now I shown you that S3 select, right, where you just see the data. So Athena can be used in similar terms, but it gives a lot more features, right? So you'll be able to query like a table, you'll be able to join other tables, and it is very, very flexible if you have to analyze your data in Athena. If you want to just look at what is there in your S3 files across folders, and if you want to join and see how the data is rendered, we go for Athena. So Athena is very, very useful when you are using S3 as a key data source for your project. Okay. So features of Athena, so there is no infrastructure, it is a serverless service. So all you have to do is create your table using a glue crawler, or you can create a table manually based on your S3 files. And you'll be able to visualize the data, and you'll be able to join the queries, and you can do a lot more operations on top of it. QuickSight will integrate with Athena, and it can directly, give you all of those dashboards that you want to visualize. Okay, so you need not actually persist your data into some database for querying your data. Okay, so that is the purpose of Athena. So if you have a file in Athena and if you want to query it, right, you need not persist it into RDS or Redshift or DynamoDB to see what is there in the data. Rather, you can just quickly query it through Athena, see what is there, and do some joins, do whatever queries you want to do. And it uses ANSI SQL standards, so you'll be able to use a lot of your standard SQL patterns there. So what are the general use cases that we use? So any new data source where you don't know what the structure of it is and the volume of it and the data type and all, right, you can just go ahead and use it. And if you want to query your logs, if you want to do some analytics, and if you want to check the data quality. So it's like querying your data even before you persist it. It's more of pre-check you'll be able to do with Athena. And from a costing perspective, Athena, you pay per query, so it is based on the volume of data that you are querying. So it is based on that volume. There is nothing we are provisioning as part of Amazon Athena when you configure it. And then $5 per TB of data scanned from S3. And DDL queries and failed queries are not billed. Okay, so it is free. And if you want to use it effectively, then we have to use either Parquet format or ORC format, and we have to use partitions so that your Athena cost is effective. So whenever we are building a big data solution, this partition, compression, all will come into place. Okay, so maybe if I do another session on big data, I'll talk about all of these. But if you want to do Athena in a very large scale, we have to look at partitioning strategy and the compression strategy. So these two are very critical. So the structure is a normal ANSI SQL, so you can query using any ANSI SQL standards on an Athena table. Internally, it uses Presto engine, so the Athena is, and Hive for your DDL functionality. So Hive, the Glue catalog and Athena, they integrate very well. And for a query patterns, you'll be using Presto-based queries. And if you want to control your work groups, right? So, for example, if you want to say only this team will have access to this Athena table, and they can only query so much of data, they cannot go beyond this data, and this is the time they can use. So you will be able to configure so many aspects of on Athena using work groups. So that is the configuration that we'll be doing on Athena if required, to isolate different groups within the organization. So if you have a sales team, if you have a technical team, if you have a support team, and if everybody is going to run the same queries on the same table, then we need to understand who's running more queries and who's consuming more cost. So if you want to look at all of those, then it's better we go and create work groups and assign those work groups to the IAM user roles, so that your cost is rolled up properly, and you'll also be able to limit the volume of data that is scanned, and you can trigger some alarms. So it is more for isolating your usage, right? It's like tagging, and it is also controlling. So Athena work groups are very useful if you have too many teams working on the same data set. Okay, so how do we create Athena tables? Today I'm going to use Glue Crawler to create Athena tables, but you can also create it manually using DDL statements. Okay, there are two ways of doing it. I'll quickly show that demo as well now. Okay. So we have uploaded this SQL files, right? So that is what I did. So there is a CSV file. So this is the same CSV file that I uploaded earlier. So I've uploaded only one file, but this folder can have any number of files, okay, with the same structure. So if you are actually pulling data from a system every day, if there is a huge amount of data, then you can have multiple files under this folder. It's not that it should have only one folder. So a quick look at it. So you can have a look at this. It is the same structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this data into Athena, and we'll just query the data from there. Okay, but generally, right, it will not be just one file. In a real-time situation, this folder will contain hundreds of files, and you'll also have some partitions in place. So there will be multiple levels of folders, and there will be hundreds and thousands of files. And Glue Crawler will be crawling this entire folder, and it will be giving you the data based on it. Okay, it will not just be one file. But for the demo, I'm just using one file. Right. So I'll move on to the Glue console. So the first step for using your Athena, we'll start. I'll show how Athena. So this is how your Athena would be. Okay, so where you'll be able to run queries. Okay, so this is the crawled file. So you can run queries, and if you want to use some joins, you'll be able to join here. Okay, so you'll be able to create tables from here. So you can either use a Glue Crawler or you can create directly from S3 bucket. Okay, so these are the two options we have. So if you start from S3 bucket, you have to create, you have to give some database, a table name, a location of your S3 data, and then you have to give your DDL statements. So I'll just copy this and just show you how it is. Okay, CSV files, so test table, next. So here, right, you have to say this is a CSV file, and then you have to manually define columns one by one. So if your file has 100 columns, then you have to just go define your columns one by one. So to avoid that, right, what we are using today is going to be your Glue Crawler. I'm not going to use this. I'll rather use the Glue Crawler so that it identifies the data by itself than we doing it. Okay, so what we do here using the Glue Crawler, let's go to Glue Crawler. Okay, so I'm going to have a name. Demo August 7 crawl. And I'm going to crawl all folders. And you're going to have, you can crawl actually S3, DynamoDB, DocumentDB, MongoDB, and using JDBC, you'll be able to crawl any data, RDS databases as well. Okay, so you can select whatever data store you want to crawl, but today we are using S3. So I'm going to use S3. and then I have to give the path what you want to crawl. So this will be a step above the files. Okay, so wherever you have the files, it should be the folder that is containing the files. And then you can add n number of data sources. If you want to add one more, you can add one more folders here. Okay, and then we'll use one of the existing IAM roles for here. But if you want, you can create one. Okay. And you here, right, you'll be able to trigger it on demand, or you'll be able to schedule it however you want to run your group new crawler. And then you can create a table default, and I'm just going to give demo August 7. Okay, so this will be your database, and this will be your prefix. Okay, so under default you'll be seeing some table with this prefix. Next and finish. So here, right, if you see, I have not given any table structure. What I've given is only the S3 file, right? So what this glue crawler is going to do is it is going to go through the files. It is going to understand the file structure, and it is going to create a table for me, okay, than me giving the details of the table for that. Okay, so then we have to go and run the crawler. Started already. So this will take some time. So I'll just show you what I've done already, and by the time we finish, I'll come back and show it is done. Okay, so it's started. So I ran this demo crawler. So if you see the demo crawler, I have created based on the same files. The database is demo August 6. Okay, so that is the database I've configured here. So if you go here, you'll see the database, and you'll see the demo August 6 as your database, and you'll see a table, and this is the table. And if you click on this table, you'll see the metadata of the table itself. Okay, so what are the columns you have? What are the data types? So this is auto inferred by Glue. Okay, because I have not given this information, so it is auto inferred based on the files you had there, and it will give you the count of objects, and it will tell you what input format it is used. So what is the classifier it is used. So it should have used a CSV classification by itself, because it is a CSV file. So that is the classification you see here. So this gives you a very easy way of creating your Athena tables. And if you want to change some of the columns, you'll be able to edit your schema, and you can definitely change the name of the columns if you want, and data type if you want here itself. Okay, so this is how it creates a table. And once the table is created, as soon as you see the table here, you can go to Athena, and my database was demo August 6, and this is a CSV file table. This is the name of the table, right? And you'll be able to query the data from here. So in case if you have multiple tables and inside the same database, right? If you have multiple files from the same, for the same business case, if you have a sales file, if you have a transaction files, and if you want to do a lot of joins, then all of these will come under these tables, okay? And you will be able to use joins, and you'll be able to do a normal query operations on these S3 files. So in Athena, right, you're not copying the data to anywhere. So it is the data is still with S3. So this is just a query engine which is going to query Athena files, S3 files, as if it is the database tables. Okay, so there is no storage, rather it is just a compute side of things. Okay, so now this is done. So demo August 7 is done. So remember, I created the database default, and I had added a prefix demo 7 CSV file. Now if you just go and see here, under default database, you should be able to see this table. And if you do a preview, you should be able to see the same data. So it's very simple. So if you use Glue Crawler to crawl your data and see the structure of the data, or this Glue Crawler and Athena will be a great supporting tools for you. Okay, so work group, as I mentioned, you'll be able to configure your work group here. So you can create work group, add users, limit your queries. So all of these you can do based on your business needs. If you want to limit your users doing only limited actions, work group gives you that option. So I'm not going in detail with work group today. And another thing is, if you want to see all your queries that has run, you have this history. Okay, so where you'll be able to see what are the queries that we have run, and you'll be able to download the results. Sometimes, right, we run queries which will have data in GBs. Okay, so those queries we need not run again and again. Rather, go to the history tab and just download the results and use for it for your analysis. And you can also have saved queries in case if you want to save some queries and use it again and again. You can have that option as well here. Yeah. Yeah, that's it pretty much I wanted to cover on S3 and Athena for today. Are there any questions? Sonali, are there any questions on the chat?
Hello, ma'am. Yes, there are some questions which I am reading
Yeah.
for you.
Yes, please.
The first question is for Ramesh Yadav. He is asking that can we move data from Azure to AWS S3 bucket, though AWS Glue, through AWS Glue?
From Azure to AWS Glue, it connects JDBC. You can use JDBC connections. If your database is JDBC enabled, you can use JDBC. Otherwise, you have to expose it as files and move it to S3, and from S3, you'll be able to read it using Glue. But directly connecting to Azure and reading it from there, I don't think we have an option right now.
Okay, ma'am. So the next question is from Prakhar Modi. What data formats does Amazon Athena support?
Okay, so currently it supports CSV, TSV, and JSON format, but there is a concept called custom classifier where you can just and log, all your grok pattern, log pattern. So all of these are currently available. Maybe I can share my screen and show that. 1 minute. Yeah, all good questions. Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, nice question. So I was just keeping it simple, so I did not add all of these content. So very good question here. So we have a concept called classifiers. Okay, so here by default, right, Athena supports your JSON, CSV, and some of the log patterns, Apache log patterns. But if you have a custom pattern, right, that you want to define, you can define a classifier. And when you crawl your data, you'll be able to add this custom classifier, and your crawler will be using that classifier for your data. Okay, so you can have all of these, right? JSON and CSV.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, these are the formats supported. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is from Vibhanshu Mishra. How do I add new data to an existing table in Amazon Athena?
Okay, so there is no concept like adding data or deleting data. Okay, so what Athena does is it just reads whatever is there in S3. Okay, but you have to crawl when there is a new data. Okay, so if you have crawled yesterday, Athena would have captured the metadata only as of yesterday. It will not know what has added today. Okay, so if you are adding data every day, and if you want the data to be live, then you have to schedule your crawler to run every 1 hour or every 15 minutes, or however you want to. Okay, so every day. So there is a scheduling frequency, I told you, right? So crawlers can be scheduled. So you can just schedule it accordingly and run your crawler so that your new data is also picked up in your Glue catalog. Okay, so data, it will not store data anywhere, rather it will just go and read the S3, but your metadata will not be refreshed until you run the crawler. Okay, did that answer?
Yes, ma'am. I hope satisfied with answer. The next question is from Prashant Sharma. Ma'am, you have please again explain Athena in normal way.
Normal way?
Like in a simple way, like what is Athena and all that.
Okay, I want me to repeat it. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay, so Athena is for querying your S3 files. Okay, so if you have a huge set of S3 files, so for the demo, I used only one file, right? In a typical use case, in a business use case where I'm working, for example, I'll give you one use case so that it is easy to relate. Okay, so if you are working for an IoT company, okay, or IoT or sensor data, right? So you'll get data from sensors every minute or every second. Okay, depends on the frequency of sensor. So all of this data will come to S3 at that frequency. Right? Every minute you'll be getting 100 records. Okay, so in a second you'll be getting 60,000 records or 100,000 records or even million records. Okay, and if you want to see what is there in that S3 folder, manually you cannot go and see what is the data we have, right? So you need some way of querying that S3 data without storing the data itself into some of the databases. Okay, so the best option is you just go store the data and do run your queries, some RDS or Redshift, right? You can do that. But before storing the data, you can just, if you want to query the data to see what is there and how many data do we have, what are the maximum value, minimum value, and if you want to join with some tables and do some analysis, that is where you use Athena for. Okay, so if it is one or two files, you can manually go and check the data type and the data misses, or if there are issues with any of the columns. So it is easy for you to check. But when you have so many files, Athena gives you that flexibility to just query your data on S3 like as if you are querying against a database. It's an interactive querying tool for S3. Okay, that makes our lives very, very easy. So without Athena, I think we would struggle to see the structure of the data for huge workloads. Okay, one or two files will be easy, but if you have a huge number of files, you just go through every file and see the column, the data type, the data in it. And if there are 100 files, you cannot open all 100 files and check, right? So this is more used for querying that all of those data as a table. Okay, so how do you create Athena table is using the glue crawler. So what crawler does, crawler will just go crawl your folder, identify the metadata, and metadata is nothing but your schema, right? Your tables, columns, data type, structures. So it will just identify the schema and it will have the and it will just store the metadata. So crawler is just a metadata store. You just have the metadata which will be used by Athena to query the S3 file. Okay, so it's more of giving your DDL to Athena so that Athena can run queries on S3 files. So that is how it works.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is from Maheshwar Kumar. Is Athena used only along with Glue and S3?
Athena, no, you can use it with QuickSight. Okay, so if you want to create dashboards, right, monitoring dashboards, you can directly integrate with Athena. And Athena, it will be a JDBC query engine. Okay, so if you want to use query engine using JDBC queries, you'll be able to access Athena with JDBC queries as well. So you can connect it with JDBC queries if required.
Okay, ma'am.
So I did not cover, sorry, Sonali, one minute. I did not cover the ETL side of things here. Okay, so Glue also has an ETL component. Today we were just talking about data catalog component. So there is an ETL component. So inside ETL component, yeah, you'll be able to use all your Glue crawlers and Athena as a source of your data. Okay, so you'll be able to use it there also.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The next question is from Prakhar Modi. How much does Amazon Athena cost?
Yeah, I think I covered it in the slide, right? So it is $5 per TB of data.
Okay.
Okay. So it is your querying data. So if you are querying a huge data, so this is what it is. So it's $5 per TB. Okay. So it depends on the volume, depends on your WAR clause itself, right? So how much ever data you're querying, it is based on that.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is from Hirendra Gurnani. He's asking that, can I use Amazon Athena to query data that I process using Amazon EMR?
See, when you process data, I'm just thinking, okay. So when you process data through EMR, right, you have access to your Glue catalog, okay. So you will not use Athena on your EMR, rather you will use the Glue catalog. So Athena uses Glue catalog. So Glue catalog is your metadata store, okay. So everywhere, right, if you see all your EMR process, right, EMR process or any process for that matter, even Glue ETL will use Glue catalog. Okay, so catalog is where you store all your metadata, and Athena uses your glue catalog for getting the metadata, and it will be querying. So when it comes to EMR, what we'll be using is we'll be using glue catalog, not Athena. Okay, using glue catalog, we'll be querying the table from EMR. So that is how it works when it is in EMR.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
So the next question is from Aishwarya Chokar.
Mhm.
He's asking that how scalable is Amazon Athena?
Uh, it is serverless, right? So you don't have any scalability side of things because we are not provisioning it. So it depends on the query that you are running, and based on your limit class, where class, I think it will scale. I've not seen any issues, but it will be slow if you are scanning a huge volume of data, and it will be costlier when you go for a huge volume of data. But I have not seen any limits on it yet. Definitely, there will be a limit on the total volume of data that you can query, but I've not hit that limit yet. But yeah, maybe I can get that answer later if there is a limit. But from a scalability perspective, since it is serverless, you'll not have anything related to scaling configuration.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is from Yogesh Parmar.
Mhm.
Does Athena store my query results?
Hmm. Yes, it does. That's what I was showing you, right? So if you see here, there's a history, right? So here, if you see, you'll have all your queries that you have run and along with the results. Okay, so if you want to download your results, you can download it, and you'll do the settings here. Okay, first time when you use your Athena, you have to give a query result location, which will be another S3 folder. Okay, so all your run queries are stored in this folder. So you can just go to this folder and you'll be able to see all your query results there. So whatever you see there is what will be shown here.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
yeah.
Okay, the next question is from Ayush Parik.
Mhm.
He's asking that does Athena support
Mhm.
database views?
Database views.
Yes, ma'am.
You can use normal JDBC connections to connect. So it's not something that is going to create views for you. It is more of connecting to a JDBC, and you're just going to read from there, right? Uh, if your normal JDBC connections can read something, I think Athena should also be able to do it. But I've not tried that. Maybe another question I can just respond. I'll just do some research and get back to you. I've not used views, so rather tables is what we've used.
Okay, ma'am. So there is no more questions.
Oh, thank you.
So
Yeah, all
showing that,
wonderful questions. Thank you so much. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it was great questions, and I think I I came. I should have prepared a lot more in depth because I thought this is more of an introduction to S3. So I just went with a very high level details on both the services. But the questions of whatever I'm seeing, I think it is a little more depth, and it is great to see so many people having so much of depth before the session. So awesome questions, and thank you guys for asking these questions. I really enjoyed it actually. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Uh,
So, showing gratitude is one of the simplest yet most powerful things human can do for each other. I take immense pleasure to extend my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to the Amazon Web Services community and AWS user group Indore for organizing such an overwhelming and insightful session. I would also like to thank Sridevi ma'am for sparing her valuable time for us from her busy schedule, giving us essential insights on AWS S3 and exploring data using Athena. Also, I would like to thank Prithviraj Singh Solanki, organizer AWS User Group Indore, certified solution architect, for his constant support and guidance throughout the event. I would like to extend my warm thanks to the organizers and assistant organizers for their hard work, dedication, and most importantly, to the core team of the AWS User Group Indore, who worked for days and nights to make this event successful. Last but not the least, presence of our very humbled audience, making it all worthy. Once again, hearty thanks to each and every one of you. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was lovely having me here. So thank you so much, and thanks Prithvi, and thanks everybody for the wonderful questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A good news for all the learners today. We are announcing our next event scheduled for 21st of August. Registration link is provided in the comment box. We look forward to join with us. And also there is a feedback form provided in the comment box. Thank you so much.